Alright, welcome back to part 2 of our 1.3 and 1.4 lecture. First thing we're going to do is just recap from the activity that we just did. So, in the algebra tiles thing that we just did, we noticed that a positive number plus a positive number gives us a bigger positive number. We still add. When you have a negative number plus a negative number, it gives you a bigger negative number where you still add those values together. But when you start getting to things with different signs, a positive number plus a negative number, or a negative number plus a positive number, doesn't matter the order, but when you have one of each sign, you get a smaller number. And in this case, you don't add, you actually subtract them. And you'll always subtract the larger value minus the smaller value, regardless of sign. So if the larger magnitude happens to be negative, you're going to do that one first, okay? You're going to do the bigger number minus the smaller number, okay? Then the sign is going to be the same as whichever one of those numbers is larger. So sign is the same as the larger number. Okay. Then we took a look at subtraction, and we found that every single time subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. So that's why when you have a minus a negative number, that's the same thing as plus a positive number. Or if you have minus a positive number, that's the same thing as plus a negative number. And so you can always rewrite subtraction as addition, and then everything that we just talked about applies, which is great. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is a little bit of vocabulary, some fill in the blank. The answer to an addition problem is called the sum. The answer to a subtraction problem is called the difference. So if you ever see those keywords in a word problem, you know what they're talking about. If they say the sum of these digits is something, that means that you are adding them. If it says the difference of these two amounts is something else, then you know that there's subtraction there. Okay. Next little thing are some properties. So 2 plus 3 gives you 5, but also 3 plus 2 gives you 5. So what you notice is that changing the order in addition doesn't change the sum. It doesn't change the outcome after you've added them. In case you're curious, that property is called the commutative property. Okay. And it just says that you can rearrange the order of things that are added together, and it doesn't change the sum. Okay. Another thing is about grouping. So especially, let's say that this has some parentheses already in it, but let's say that you have 1 plus 2 plus 3 and it doesn't have any parentheses, and one person decides to add 1 plus 2 first, which would be 3, and then they add the 3, which would give you 6. A different person decides to add the 2 and the 3 first, which would be 5. And then after that, they added the 1 from the beginning. That also gives you 6. So with that same problem, 1 plus 2 plus 3, you can see that changing the grouping in addition doesn't change the sum. And in case you're curious, that property is called the associative property of addition. Okay, and that's especially important when sometimes it's easier when a couple of numbers get something nice and pretty like 10 or 20 or 50 or 100. Like you can get a couple of numbers, you're like, oh, those give me a nice easy number. Let's add those first and then add that last one. Okay, so let's do a lot of examples. Okay. In example 1, the first line, I have lots of 7s and 3s just to illustrate some things with positives and negatives, okay? And they're all added together. So first one, I have positive 7 plus positive 3. So if you want to think back to those algebra tiles, I would have 7 positives and then we have 3 more positives. Now I have 10 positives on my mat. So 7 plus 3 equals positive 10. Part B, you've got negative 7 plus negative 3. So now, if you want to think back to the mat, we would have 7 negative tiles and then add 3 more negative tiles. So all in all, I would have 10 negatives on my mat. So negative 7 plus negative 3 equals negative 10. All right, in part C, you've got 7 positives plus 3 negatives. So what's going to end up happening is that those 3 negatives are going to cancel out with 3 of the positives. And after you do that, you're going to have 4 positives remaining. Okay? In part D, we have negative 7 plus 3. So now I have 7 negatives on my mat and then 3 positives. So those 3 positives are going to cancel out with 3 of those negatives. And you're going to have 4 negative tiles left over. So that would be negative 4. If you want to relate this to the recap above, 7 plus 3 would be 10 because they're the same sign, so you add them together, and we end up with a positive number. Negative 7 plus 3 are also the same sign, so you would add those together and get a bigger negative number. In C and D, we have 1 positive and 1 negative for both of those, which is why we're subtracting. So 7 minus 3 is 4. And it's a positive 4 because the 7's bigger, and it's positive. For D, you'd also do 7 minus 3, which is 4, but this time it's negative because the negative 7 is the bigger value. So the sign is going to be negative 4 instead of positive 4. Let's keep on going. And the next line, I have lots of 4s and 8s, and this time we're subtracting. Okay? So in the first one, I have 4 minus 8. And you can rewrite this as addition. This would be the same thing as 4 plus negative 8. And you'll notice I have 1 positive and 1 negative, which means we're subtracting. 8 minus 4 is 4. And it's going to be a negative 4 because the 8 is bigger and it's negative. Okay. Next up, in F, I have 4 minus negative 8. So I can rewrite that as addition, so that would be 4 plus the opposite of negative 8, which is positive 8. So now I have 4 plus 8, which is 12. In G, I have negative 4 minus 8. I can rewrite that as addition. That would be negative 4 plus the opposite of 8, which would be negative 8. So now I have the same sign. I have a negative plus a negative, which gives me a bigger negative, which would be negative 12. Last one, I have negative 4 minus negative 8. So I can rewrite that as addition. So that's negative 4 plus positive 8. I have different signs again. I have a negative and a positive, which means I'm subtracting. 8's bigger, so I'm thinking of 8 minus 4 here, which is 4. 8 is the bigger number, and it is positive, so my answer is going to be positive. Okay, so hopefully that helps a little bit with some clarification. Let's see a few more examples, okay? All right, in I, I've got negative 7 plus 12, and I'm going to let you guys try this one. Okay, so on your own at home, I'm going to let you guys pause the video, and I'm going to give you the answer in 3, 2, 1. You should get positive 5 for this one. Okay. In J, we've got negative 32 plus negative 15. So the first thing you're thinking is, am I adding or am I subtracting? Well, I've got a negative plus a negative, so that will give me a bigger negative. I am adding in this one. I'm just going to get a negative answer at the end of it, okay? But this is a good time to review our 2-digit addition. So we are adding. We're going to do 32 plus 15. I know that my answer is going to be negative at the end of it, but let's just work on the addition first. So in adding, I'm going to do 2 plus 5, which is 7 in the ones column, 3 plus 1, which is 4 in the tens column, and since I had a negative plus a negative, my answer is negative 47, not positive 47. Okay? Let's see, in K, we've got negative 6 minus negative 25. I think I can let you guys do this one too. So, yet again, pause the video, and I will give you the answer in 3, 2, 1. You should get positive 19 on this one. So this is the same thing as negative 6 plus 25. And so you will do 25 minus 6 to get 19 as your answer. Alright, oh, we have 9 minus 33. That's the same thing as 9 plus negative 33. So you should be doing subtraction again. And if you want a quick little subtraction refresher, we'll put the 33 on the top since it's bigger. And I'm going to do 33 minus 9. And so with the subtraction, you're trying to take 9 from 3, and you can't because there's not enough there. So you'll borrow. So that in the tens place, that 3 will become a 2, because we're going to take one of those tens over to the ones area and make that 3 into a 13. Then you're ready to do your subtraction. 13 minus 9 is 4 in the ones column. In the tens place, it's 2 minus nothing, which would be 2. So then I get 24. Then going back to my problem of is it positive or is it negative? Well, the bigger number is negative, so my answer is going to be negative as well. Okay. All right. In M, we have negative 150 minus 450. So that's the same thing as negative 150 plus negative 450. So now I have a negative number plus a negative number. So that's going to give us a bigger negative number. We should be adding in that one. So if I have 150 plus 450, see in the ones column, 0 plus 0 is 0. In the tens column, 5 plus 5 is 10. So I'm going to have a 0 here and carry the 1. In the 100s column, I've got 1 plus 1, which is 2, plus 4, which would be 6. So I get 600. Looking back at my problem, I have a negative number plus a negative number, which is going to give me a negative 600 as my answer, not positive. Alright, in N and O, you have more than one thing added together, so let's talk about how to approach those. So the nice thing about addition is that you can do it in any order that you'd like to, as long as you add everything and you only add them once. So in N, I see 23 plus negative 8 plus negative 18. I'm going to choose to add just my negative numbers together first, and then I'll add the positive one second, because that seems easier to me. And so there's a little bit of personal choice in these, which is nice. So negative 8 plus negative 18, since I have two negative numbers added together, I am going to add them, and I'll get a negative number at the end of it. So I'm going to have 18 plus 8. 8 plus 8 is 16, and 1 plus 1 is 2. So negative 8 plus negative 18 is negative 26. So now I have 23 plus negative 26. You notice I always go back to the problem here, okay, and rewrite it each time. Showing your work on these is actually a wonderful thing to do. I know that some people think that super smart math people do everything in their heads, and it's just not true. A lot of math people show their work, and when you show your work for each step and completely show your work for each step, you're a lot more likely to get the problem right. So get in good habits now and show your work along the way. Okay? At this step, I have 23 plus negative 26. So now I have a positive plus a negative, which means I'm subtracting. The bigger one is 26. So 26 minus 23 is 3. And then the sign is going to be negative because of that 26 being negative. Okay? Alright, I'm going to let you guys try O. Now that I've kind of shown you what to do here. Okay, and there's lots of different ways that you can do it, but I will let you guys have a moment to try that out. So go ahead and pause your video and try O, and I will give you the answer in 3, 2, 1. You should get an answer of -27 for O. So there's lots of ways to do this one. Personally, I broke it in 2 little groups here like that. And I had -16 plus 11 is -5. And -18 plus -4 is -22. So then I had -5 plus -22 is -27. Okay. Last thing we're going to do today is a couple of quick word problems. I promise they're not too intimidating. You guys can do these. I promise. So let's take a look. The first one says that Caitlin's checking account is overdrawn by $70. So remembering from our first section, overdrawn by $70 means it should be a -70 that I'm starting out with. She deposits $100 into her account, so she's going to add $100 to her account to try to correct that. What is her new account balance? So we started out with -70, then we're adding 100 to it, and -70 plus 100 is 30. So her new account balance is $30. Okay. The next one says that Henry had $120 stolen. $92 was returned to him. What was his net loss? So if he had $120 stolen from him, we're starting with a -120. Then $92 was returned to him, so he's going to add $92 here. What was his net loss? So I'm doing -120 plus 92, so I am subtracting here. So 120 minus 92. I can't take 2 from 0, so I'm going to borrow. So I'm borrowing from the tens column. 2 is going to become a 1. And then that 10 that I borrowed comes over here to make the 0 into a 10. 10 minus 2 is 8. In the tens column, I can't take 9 from 1. So I'm actually borrowing from that hundreds column. So now I don't have anything left in the hundreds column, but in the tens I'll have 11. 11 minus 9 is 2. So 120 minus 92 is 28. It is going to be a negative number because the 120 was a larger number and it was negative. So I'm at -28. And I made a little note here because in my math lab, I thought if it says that there's a loss, I just should type in 28. But my lab actually wanted a negative value, even though net loss implies that the value is negative. So type in -28. That's what they're looking for. And that's how to do these. So hopefully this helps you guys do lots of practice. Make sure that you're really good on the rules of when you're adding, when you're subtracting, when the value is positive, and when the value is negative. If you have any questions at all along the way, let me know. Hope you guys have a great day.